Fury fans and Usyk fans, you may not like what I'm about to say, but let's dive into some hard truths about this rematch. A colossal showdown between Usyk and Fury. This fight is shaping up to be an absolute spectacle, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Secure your pay-per-view now through DAZN. It's the ultimate destination for this historic night. No subscription is required, but with your purchase, you'll get a free 7-day trial, granting you access to the home of boxing. Chances are, you'll end up loving it anyway. Now, on to the fight talk. The first bout stirred up massive debate among fans, even though Usyk was the clear winner on the night. Round 2 is proving to be just as polarizing. Of course, we're all hoping the fight actually happens this time. After the fallout earlier this year in February, it's understandable to feel a tinge of doubt. Fingers crossed.
Fight talk!
Let's hope they stay positive this time. However, the first harsh truth ties directly to this. It's no secret that Fury didn't want to fight Usyk in the first place.
Fury got cut a few weeks before the fight was meant to happen.
Look at that right there. Woo.
Now, Fury fans, don't worry. I've got some harsh truths for the Usyk fans as well. I'll balance it out, so don't you worry. But first, let's rewind for a moment and take a brief look at the history of this fight. I know you've heard it a million times, so I'll try not to bore you. Anyway, after Usyk defeated Anthony Joshua for the second time in yet another outstanding display, a new top contender emerged on the heavyweight scene, the main man himself, Oleksandr Usyk.
It's been going on a long time. You were supposed to fight in April at Wembley. It never happened.
At this point, Fury was actually retired after demolishing Dillian Whyte at Wembley. He was chilling out, relaxing, enjoying his millions, and claiming he'd never return to the ring. But let's be honest, he only said he was retired because it made for an interesting storyline in his Netflix documentary, didn't it? Everyone knew that was a load of bollocks. We all knew he'd be back in the mix eventually. Unfortunately, though, we didn't expect him to drag D. Bowie into the mix as well.
I can thank you, Saudi. Thank you so much.
Yes, his return was nothing more than a cherry-picked, easy payday against the washed-up Dill Boy. Now, don't get me wrong. We love D. But let's be real. This fight should never have happened. Either way, though, things finally started to get exciting when Usyk jumped up on the apron afterward. That's when the real buzz kicked in.
You're charging the great British public hard-earned money to watch this on pay-per-view. Chisora, he ain't going to put you down if he's in there with a hammer with you.
You know he can't put anybody down. He's done a lot in the sport, and he deserves his payday, and I'm willing to give it.
And with 2023 just around the corner, there was no other fight that made sense for the first part of the year. What could possibly go wrong? Well, what could possibly go right? Yes, as mentioned, Fury, for whatever reason, just didn't want the fight. Instead, he pushed Usyk to accept a ridiculous 70-30 split.
All these big fights have evaded for so long, but they can't run away anymore. They can run, but they can't hide.
Usyk then called his bluff and accepted the deal.
Usyk, you and your team are worth 30%.
Then there was a mega deal on the table for the fight to take place in Saudi, but somehow Fury managed to price himself out of that one as well. After that, the plan shifted to Wembley, but Fury started pushing to get rid of the rematch clause entirely. Why? Because if he lost, the rematch purse would have favored Usyk. In the end, Fury's constant, unnecessary demands pushed Team Usyk to their limit. They simply couldn't be bothered anymore, and they walked away.
I accept your offer. 70-30, split the fight.
Now, some may argue that Fury wasn't being unreasonable, but let's not forget the signs. Throughout this entire saga, he never seemed to be training seriously for the Usyk fight. Sugar Hill Stewart wasn't even in Fury's camp. He was off working with Lawrence Okolie elsewhere. On top of that, Fury dropped hints about a monstrous fight that had absolutely nothing to do with Usyk. All of this pointed to one conclusion. Fury was trying to get out of the fight. That monstrous fight turned out to be Francis Ngannou. And when that was announced, everything suddenly made perfect sense. Why risk a tough fight against a boxing genius like Usyk when you could take on an MMA fighter with hardly any risk, all while earning a bigger payday? Fury was just playing the game, plain and simple.
Alexander Usyk and his team are known to be the easiest people to deal with in the world of boxing. So there's only one thing still pending. It's a complex person trying to squeeze as much money as possible.
I had a real sense that Fury and Usyk was going to be one of those fights that we lost.
Funny enough, Ngannou turned out to be harder than Fury thought. He said, "I didn't realize he could actually box. You didn't tell me that, did you?"
Maybe Tyson Fury not serious. Oh, it's MMA fighter, blah, 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 blah.
But after controversially scraping through against Ngannou, and with Usyk staying busy by fighting Daniel Dubois just before this, the undisputed fight was finally set. In a nutshell, it took one man, Mr. Turki Al Sheikh, with an offer Fury couldn't refuse, for him to finally agree to fight the unified champion. Fury is 35 now, and it's about time we get the fight the people want to see. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Of course, he was never scared of Usyk, but he was clearly scared of losing to Usyk. Losing would damage his drawing power, his record, his ego, and so much more. If he lost, he couldn't claim to be the greatest of all time, and that pressure would have been unbearable. As much as he threw out the tough talk, "I'll beat him and AJ on the same night," he knew exactly how good Usyk was. Maybe he just felt he wouldn't be able to keep up with Usyk's pace after watching him dismantle AJ, Chisora, and the entire cruiserweight division. And here's another harsh truth for Fury. He's just not the man he once was, and he knows it. As we all know, he's battered his body over the years. He blew up to nearly 30 stone around 7 years ago, and even through his comeback, he's had his blow-ups between fights. I mean, even before the Ngannou fight, he looked like he'd been living off bounty bars and a steady diet of bad habits. On top of that, he doesn't mind having a drink now and then. Don't get me wrong, there's no shame in that. But the fact is, Fury isn't known for staying in peak athletic shape all year round. This isn't much of an issue when he's fighting inferior opponents like Chisora and Ngannou, but it becomes a real problem when facing a machine like Usyk, someone who stays in shape all year round and is the consummate professional. Just a few months ago, we saw Fury stumbling out of a pub looking absolutely wrecked. Now, okay, maybe it was just a one-off and we shouldn't read too much into it, but then again, maybe we should. All of this combined is why he's not as fit these days and can no longer move like he did in the Klitschko fight. The wear and tear on his body is clear, and it's had a detrimental effect on his legs, footwork, and stamina. He's now more of a plant the feet, stand and trade fighter. That works fine against other fighters who are also stand and trade types. But Usyk, being the elusive, fleet-footed mover that he is, turns that into a problem for Fury. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, because the man in the opposite corner, Usyk, is now 37 years old as well. And as much as we know he's a machine, the harsh truth is that his body has got to start failing at some point. He's been pushing it to the limit for the past 20 years, so could that time be now? I know it's only 7 months after the first fight, but you never know what that fight took out of him. I went to congratulate Alexander in his dressing room with his team, and I'll tell you what, he definitely knew he'd been in a fight. If you'd filmed the two of them, you'd have thought Tyson had won the fight. Now, here's another harsh truth for Usyk fans. Can he actually perform better than he did on that night? I just don't know. Surely he can't be more aggressive than he was, and he can't be busier than he was last time out. And regardless of whether you think the fight should have been stopped in the 9th round, it wasn't, meaning Usyk's free shot after free shot didn't have enough power to knock Fury out. The big guy, the Gypsy King, was stumbling around the ring, but Fury recovered well enough to win rounds after that, which clearly had no lasting effects on him. Meanwhile, Usyk's best shots barely fazed him. Fury must have been thinking, what do I have to do to get this man out of there? If we take away that 9th round moment, this fight was incredibly close. I'd still have Usyk winning by a round or two, but it certainly wasn't a shutout. And certainly not enough to guarantee Usyk will win the second time around. Here's a crucial harsh truth for Usyk fans. Fury can be better. He was so close last time, winning on points. With a little more focus and less complacency, he could definitely get the job done. He's always been a much more formidable force in rematches. Just look at his career. After mistakes in his first fights with Wilder and Chisora, he came back in the rematches and completely dismantled them. Now, let's think about how Fury could implement that kind of improvement this time. He knows Usyk had success in the middle rounds, and he surely has confidence knowing it was close and he can adjust his game plan. One thing Fury didn't exploit last time was Usyk's body, and he knows now that if he targets that area, he could do much more damage. But as we said earlier, it all depends on whether his body allows him to do what he wants. Now, let's also take into account Usyk's toughest heavyweight fight to date, Derek Chisora. Chisora did manage to bully him and make it a rough, scrappy night for him. Fury, with his size, could combine the bullying tactics Chisora used with his own boxing IQ. If he does, who's to say he couldn't do a much more impactful job than Chisora did? As we talked about before, Fury didn't use the bullying tactics as much as we thought he would in the first fight, but you can bet your bottom dollar that he will this time around. And Usyk will need to be at his fleet-footed best to avoid it. But here's another harsh truth for Fury. Usyk's chin is seriously underrated. He took some of the best shots from Fury, AJ, and Dubois and just kept coming. Usyk ate those punches and kept moving forward. Fury's best shots didn't put Usyk in distress, and that's a serious problem for Fury. Does Fury have the power to knock Usyk out? That's up for debate. And he might need to knock him out because Usyk's work rate is insane. No one's ever been able to outwork him. If Fury doesn't stop him, Usyk will keep coming and coming. Fury will have to maintain his strategy for 12 rounds. Will he be able to keep it up, or will he gas out? It all comes back to his fitness. If he does gas out, he's in big trouble. Usyk is relentless, and he'll exploit any sign of weakness. Fury didn't do himself any favors coming into the first fight with his cherry-picked opponents. Chisora, Ngannou, and even Dillian Whyte don't replicate what Usyk brings to the table. But now, after facing Usyk, Fury knows how good he is. And he knows he'll need to be better in the rematch. Usyk is going in with full confidence, while Fury may be lacking his usual swagger after a close fight and a loss. This fight could be a totally different clash this time, with both men knowing what to expect and going all out. We'll see how it goes. Don't forget to grab that pay-per-view and enjoy the fight.